Welcome to Moonlitwest, where gentle and meaningful stories are told under the moonlight, taking you to sweet and peaceful dreams. Today, we have a special story for you, a journey filled with light, hope, and growth. Before we begin, don't forget to like and subscribe to the Moonlitwest channel so you don't miss any exciting stories. If you have anything to share, leave a comment below. We always read every message you send and are constantly improving to bring you better content. Thank you so much for joining us. And now, take a deep breath. Relax your body and get ready to step into today's story. A gentle yet meaningful story just for you to have the most relaxing moments. Let's begin. The light in Rosie's garden. Beginning a peaceful life. Under the daisy bushes in Rosie's warm garden, the Flicker family lived in a burrow dug deep into the soft earth. The garden was so beautiful on sunny days, when the light shone through the leaves, illuminating the flowers in vibrant colors. Flicker, a small and gentle firefly, lived with his parents and siblings in the firefly family. Although still a larva, he had begun to understand that the name firefly that he carried was not just a simple twinkle, but also carried the responsibility of protecting each other within the family. This garden is our home, Flicker's mother often reminded him when teaching him the rules. Every glow is a reminder. Fireflies must always remember each other and remember home. On sunny days, Flicker often followed his father outside to supplement food for the family. Plump little worms and young leaves were valuable nutrients. While eating, Father Flicker often shared stories of the past about how he made his first flights. Back then, I was just a newly lit firefly. Father Flicker smiled as he recalled. Every flight required courage and patience. Flicker listened to this story every day, but never got tired of it. In his heart, the meaning of his family was always something warm. Family love. The Flicker family also had older siblings, especially Glow, the oldest and often a role model for Flicker to learn from. Glow, with a light as bright as a small star, was the pride of the whole family. However, Glow was never arrogant and had even saved Flicker's life once when he was in danger. Flicker, remember, to shine doesn't mean just being in the dark. Use that light to guide others. Glow often reminded Flicker whenever they passed the large trails in the garden. Sometimes, Flicker and Glow would sit on the green grass, watching other fireflies fly around. Flicker counted and solved math problems, while Glow closed his eyes and listened to the wind blowing through the leaves. Every evening, the whole family of fireflies would organize a short dance in the garden. Hundreds of firefly eyes created a sparkling picture in the darkness. Part 2. Away from home. Beginning of the rain. One afternoon, Flicker was still playing around the daisy bushes as usual. The gentle sunlight above shone through the leaves, creating shimmering streaks of light. He took tiny steps through the fertile soil, glancing at the buzzing bees flying by, carrying pollen-filled flowers. Buzz is always so busy, isn't he? Flicker muttered to himself. I like watching him fly around. But the bright sky suddenly turned gray. Dark purple clouds covered the sun, bringing with them a cold wind. Flicker looked up, feeling something was different now. It's probably going to rain, Flicker mumbled. I have to go home right away. But while Flicker was still admiring the trembling leaf, the first gust of wind arrived with heavy raindrops. In contrast to the previous sunlight, the cold and the roar quickly filled the air, washed away from home. Flicker quickly ran back toward the nest, but the slippery ground caused him to stumble. The rainwater washed over the daisies, erasing familiar traces. At that moment, the flowers shook in the howling wind. Flicker lost his balance and was swept away by the water. Mom, Glow. Flicker cried out in horror, but his voice was drowned out by the wind. The currents quickly carried Flicker through the soft soil, rolling over the fallen bushes. Flicker tried to hold onto a branch, but was quickly swept away by the strong current. When the rain finally started to subside, Flicker realized he had been swept to a dark corner of the garden. The familiar daisy flowers were gone, replaced by tall bushes and damp leaves. All around, creatures were returning to their ruins. Fear and reminder. Flicker looked around in bewilderment. He realized this area was completely unfamiliar. The feeling of loneliness overwhelmed Flicker. The dark corners of the garden now seemed huge and scary. Where am I? Where is my family? Flicker whispered. But that was when Flicker remembered what his mother used to say. Wherever you are, your light will always guide you home. His mother's reminder was like a small, flickering light in Flicker's mind. He told himself that even though everything looked scary now, as long as he held on to his faith, the light within him would guide him back to his nest. Keeping his eyes forward, Flicker tried to steady his small feet on the wet soil. The rustling sounds of the night garden seemed to grow louder in his ears. But amidst the fear, Flicker could still feel a small glimmer of hope. I can't give up. I have to go home, Flicker murmured to himself, trying to keep his courage. He walked on, his small feet slowly crossing the wet soil. The dark shadows of the garden seemed to stretch endlessly before him. But even in the darkness, Flicker felt a small light within him, a light that would guide him home. The first stop, the path under the bushes. While wandering around, Flicker suddenly heard a faint sound ahead. He stopped, his heart pounding, and hid behind a dry leaf. Peering through the gap in the leaf, he saw a small caterpillar slowly crawling across the muddy ground. "Hello," Flicker said, trying to keep his voice soft. The caterpillar paused, its small, sparkling eyes turning to Flicker. "Hello. Who are you?" the shy caterpillar replied. Flicker introduced himself and told him that he was lost and needed to find his way home. The caterpillar, named Coco, nodded slowly. "I don't know the way out, but I can help you avoid the dangers here. This area is not safe." The two of them walked together along the small path, full of dangers that Flicker had never faced before. Suddenly, they heard a loud noise and felt the ground shake. Flicker was terrified. "What was that?" Coco whispered. "It's a colony of angry ants looking for food. They travel in long lines, and anything in their way will be swept away." Flicker shivered. He followed Coco, and they quickly hid under a dry leaf. The ants rushed past, leaving small footprints on the damp soil. When they were gone, Coco sighed in relief. "We're safe now." Flicker thanked Coco, and they continued their journey along the leaf-strewn path. Stop 2. The lavender bush. After a while, Flicker and Coco came across a beautiful purple lavender bush, its sweet fragrance filling the air. Under the dim light of dusk, the flowers swayed gently in the breeze. From above, a busy bee was flying back and forth between the flowers, collecting pollen. "Hello," Flicker called out. The bee stopped and looked down curiously. "Hello there. I'm Buzz, a busy bee. What can I do for you?" Flicker told him his story, and Buzz listened attentively. After Flicker finished, Buzz smiled. "Your light is precious. It's something no one can take away. Remember, when you need it, the light within you will always guide you." Flicker felt a warmth in his heart. Buzz looked into the distance, then said, "If you want to find your way home, follow the moonlight first. You need to go to the small pond in the west of the garden. That's an important landmark." Buzz showed Flicker the way, and even gave him a small drop of honey and a dewdrop to regain his strength. Flicker thanked Buzz profusely, and he and Coco continued their journey, this time with a clearer direction, heading to the pond. Under the weak light of the setting sun, Flicker led the way, feeling more confident thanks to Buzz's encouragement. Coco, though still shy, was gradually becoming more open to Flicker. They talked about their families, about their small dreams, as they overcame the challenging path. The sound of gently flowing water began to echo in the air, signaling that they were approaching the small pond. Flicker felt a surge of hope in his heart. He knew this was only the first leg of the journey back home, but the light within him was beginning to shine brighter than ever. Flicker and Coco continued their journey towards the small pond, as guided by Buzz. The sound of the gently flowing water became clearer, and the shimmering moonlight reflected on the water's surface filled Flicker with hope. He turned to Coco. "We're almost there. I'm sure the pond will be an important landmark to find our way home." Coco, though still shy, smiled encouragingly, but just as they were about to move forward, a giant shadow suddenly appeared in front of them. Flicker looked up, and his heart stopped beating when he realized it was a group of children running towards them. "Look, a firefly! It's so beautiful," one child shouted, pointing at Flicker. Curious eyes quickly focused on him. Coco whispered urgently, "Run, Flicker. We can't let them catch us." Flicker tried to run as fast as he could, but his tiny legs couldn't match the speed of the children. A large hand reached out and gently lifted him from the ground. Flicker felt himself trapped in a small, confined space. And when he opened his eyes, he realized he had been placed in a glass jar. "Let's keep it. Look at its light," the child exclaimed, holding the jar high. Flicker flapped his tiny wings against the jar, but to no avail. Coco, who was hiding under a leaf nearby, watched anxiously. He wanted to help Flicker, but his shyness prevented him from taking risks. Instead, Coco decided to follow the children closely to find an opportunity to save his friend. Close your eyes, relax your mind, and let the gentle rhythm of the story guide you to peace. In Rosie's house, the children took Flicker into Rosie's house. The light from the electric bulb shone on the jar, highlighting Flicker's weak glow. The children gathered around the jar, marveling. "It's so beautiful, but why is its light so dim?" Flicker felt his light fading. He remembered Buzz's words. "The light inside you is something no one can take away." But now, in this confined and unfamiliar space, Flicker began to doubt himself. While the children were excitedly talking, Rosie called from the kitchen, "Kids, it's dinner time. Wash your hands." The children put the jar on the table and left without paying any attention to Flicker. He looked through the glass and saw Coco sneaking closer. Coco whispered, "Flicker, are you okay?" "No, I don't know how to get out," Flicker replied, his voice filled with disappointment. "The guiding light." Coco looked around and realized that the jar lid was only loosely screwed on. The caterpillar used all his strength and pushed the lid slightly. After a few attempts, the lid began to loosen. Flicker realized his chance. He focused and used all his remaining strength to shine. Flicker's light suddenly became brighter than ever. It illuminated the entire dark room, exciting Coco. "That's right, Flicker. Use your light to guide." The strong light attracted the attention of Whiskers, a cute cat in the house. When it jumped onto the table, the jar was knocked over, the lid popped open, and Flicker quickly escaped. He flew up, feeling freedom fill his body. "Thank you, Coco. I owe you one," Flicker said, smiling at his little friend. They quickly escaped Rosie's house through an open window. Outside, the moonlight illuminated the path toward the pond. Although Flicker's heart was still pounding from fear, he felt hope filling him. He knew that with the light inside him, and the help of his friends, he would soon find his way home. The night sky returned to its usual tranquility. The dim moonlight shone over the garden, casting a soft silver glow on everything. After escaping Rosie's house, Flicker and Coco stopped at the edge of the pond. They both caught their breath and looked up at the shimmering water surface. The pond is so big. How are we going to cross it? Coco asked, his voice trembling. Flicker tried to stay calm, even though his heart was also filled with worry. He knew he had to be stronger. We'll find a way. Buzz said the pond is an important landmark, which means we have to cross it to get closer to home, Flicker replied, his eyes shining with hope. Meeting Shelley, the old snail. As they stood at the edge of the water, a hoarse voice came from behind. What are two little ones doing here at this time of night? Flicker and Coco turned around in surprise. Behind them was an old snail with a large, silvery shell on its back. Shelley's slow pace couldn't hide her experience and wisdom. We need to cross this pond, Flicker explained. Do you know how? Shelley snorted and shook her head. It won't be easy, little ones. But if you're willing to learn, I can help. Flicker and Coco looked at each other, then said in unison, We're ready. Shelley led them to a tree where large leaves had fallen. With Shelley's guidance, Flicker and Coco began to collect the dry leaves and put them together to create small boats. These leaves are light and float well, Shelley explained, but you have to keep your balance, or else. Shelley paused and glanced at the still water, making Coco shiver, crossing the pond. After finishing the small boat, Flicker and Coco carefully climbed aboard. Shelley helped push the boat away from the shore. Small waves rippled as the boat began to move, drifting towards the center of the pond. The moonlight reflected on the water, creating a magical scene. But their joy was short-lived when a gentle breeze blew, causing the boat to rock. Keep your balance, Shelley shouted from the shore. Flicker tried to keep the boat steady, while Coco held on tightly to a corner of the leaf. Cold water splashed up, but they didn't give up. As they neared the middle of the pond, a swarm of dragonflies suddenly flew by, causing the water to ripple violently. Flicker felt the boat shake violently. He closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and focused all his strength on shining. Flicker's light shone brightly, not only illuminating the path ahead, but also causing the dragonflies to fly away, leaving the water calm. Coco's jaw dropped as he stared at Flicker. You're amazing, Flicker. Your light saved us. Flicker opened his eyes, realizing that his light was no longer faint. It shone brilliantly, full of life and strength. Reaching the far shore, as the tiny boat touched the opposite shore, Shelley was already there, waiting. The old snail gazed at Flicker with a look of satisfaction. I knew you could do it. That light of yours is your strength. Flicker felt his heart swell with joy and pride. He bowed his head in gratitude. "Thank you for helping us. I'll never forget your kindness." Shelley smiled warmly. "Don't thank me. Use your light to help others, just as you've done for your friends." Flicker nodded, and alongside Coco, set off once more. The paths ahead were more familiar, but Flicker knew there were still challenges to overcome. The light of growth. Crossing the shore, Flicker felt a change within himself. His light was no longer just a guide in the dark. It radiated hope and trust. He turned to Coco, smiling. "We've come so far, but the journey isn't over yet." Coco looked at Flicker with admiration. "I believe in you. Flicker, your light will guide us home." They pressed on, Flicker's glow illuminating the night. For the first time, he felt unafraid. Flicker was no longer just a small firefly. He had grown, ready to face whatever lay ahead. Part 7. Reunion with Family. Flicker and Coco continued their journey, leaving the small pond behind. Flicker's light shone brighter than ever, illuminating the paths leading to the patch of daisies, his cherished home. Memories of family filled his mind. Warm evenings with his mother, his father's fascinating stories, and the laughter of his siblings. These images fueled his weary steps, urging him forward despite the fatigue of the long journey. Coco, though still timid, had become a steadfast companion. He glanced at Flicker's glow with admiration. "You're so strong, Flicker. Your light makes me believe everything will be okay." Flicker smiled warmly. "I couldn't have done this without you, Coco." We're almost home, returning to the daisies. At last, Flicker and Coco reached familiar territory. The field of daisies stretched before them, glowing under the moonlight. Flicker's heart raced as he spotted tiny lights flickering among the flowers, his family's lights. "That's them, my family," Flicker exclaimed, his tiny wings trembling with emotion. He dashed toward the lights, leaving Coco smiling in the distance. Tears of joy streamed down Flicker's face as he saw his mother, father, and siblings waiting by the daisies. His mother was the first to rush forward, enveloping him in a warm embrace. "Flicker, you've come home." His father stepped closer, his eyes gleaming with pride. "You've overcome so much. You've truly grown, Flicker." His siblings gathered around, their voices filled with excitement and joy. Flicker recounted his journey, from being swept away by the storm, meeting Coco, Shelley, and Buzz, to his daring escape from the children. Each story deepened their admiration for Flicker's courage and perseverance. A garden, ablaze, with light. As Flicker finished his tale, his mother gently touched his shoulders and said, "You've discovered the light within you, Flicker. It not only brought you home, but also brightens this garden." Flicker looked around. The glow from his light merged with those of his family, illuminating the daisy's final message. Flicker's journey reminds us that each of us carries an inner light, a hidden strength to overcome life's challenges. No matter how difficult the journey, perseverance and belief in ourselves will guide us, and even in the smallest corners of the world, like Mrs. Rosie's garden, there are wonders waiting to be discovered. Flicker, no longer just a tiny firefly, has become a symbol of hope and growth, ready to shine brightly in the vast world ahead. Thank you for joining Flicker's journey today. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit like and subscribe to be part of exciting nightly adventures under the moonlight with Moonlitwest. Sleep tight, dream sweet dreams, and see you again tomorrow.